Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 68.
Wow.
68.
There you go.
That's a lot of numbers.
It is.
I mean, I'm proud of us a little bit.
I am too.
I don't believe in pride, but here we are anyway. Welcome, everybody, for joining us for another edition of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. I am Shawn Hannon, joined by Ben Hussong, as always. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
How was your weekend?
Wonderful, I think. I don't know. You always
Bills
ask me
won.
this, and I never remember.
I know.
Until how was my weekend? No, it was a good weekend. I had a good time. Got together with some friends. Watched the Bills win 40-0, which is always
They covered.
By a little.
I mean, they were a 17.5-point favorite. We'll get into that. It's kind of a gigantic spread.
Stop.
They were 17.5-point favorites. There's no way I would ever bet the Bills. But they
no
covered.
shot would I have bet
No.
on a 17.5 point.
No, that's like
spread.
anything over 10 is ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
17.5.
You got to play the odds. If it's 10 or above, you got to take the points.
Any non-sports weekend topics of discussion you'd like to enlighten the folks with?
No, it was a good weekend. Got to spend a little time with the family, run around, did some soccer coaching, and
Soccer season, huh?
oh yeah, we're into it.
Are they distanced?
No,
Good.
no, they're not. No masks, no distancing. I say that now. Now, guaranteed, next game they're going to come out with that stupid rule.
Yeah, I got to work a private wedding over the weekend, so I wasn't really at the place of employment. I was
Yeah,
doing a solo gig, but
nice. How'd it go?
it was in the middle of the woods or kind of thing, so it was
Nice.
fun.
Like deliverance stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
How was the rest of your weekend?
That was good. I worked all weekend, but yesterday was kind of a weird event for me anyway. So we had some news to cover.
A little bit.
Before we get into any of that, why don't you please take the time to like and share this video? It helps us with the algorithms. I haven't mentioned that in a while.
You haven't mentioned the algorithms in a while.
So please join us there. Leave a review if you're listening to the audio podcast, wherever you're listening to that audio podcast. Thank you. And you can leave a 5-star review for us there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can be alerted to when we release new content. So want to jump in a little bit of sports? We'll continue on that Bills talk and talk about NFL Week 4.
Yeah, let's cover it. Rougher week for your Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I've given up on the Steelers already.
Fair
After
enough.
Week 1. I got my Super Bowl, and I'm done. So, like, I haven't watched the game since Week 1. I already won the season, so it's over. I mean, on that note, I'm pretty sure we're just waiting for Ben to retire here at this point. Yeah. I mean, I didn't watch the game because again I was busy working a wedding in the middle of the woods with no internet connection, so
Amazing.
I didn't know how any of that happened until later in the evening anyway. But so I didn't see the game, but Aaron Rodgers, much better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger at this point in their lives, probably in all points of their lives.
I don't want to belittle Ben Roethlisberger, but
I mean, listen, he's got Super Bowls.
Great. He's great, but he's not Aaron Rodgers.
No. But the Bills, actually, all the New York teams won this weekend. Bills won, Giants won, and Jets won both in overtime, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing for the state of New York.
Well, the Jets, I still don't understand how Tennessee lost, but I also don't understand how Tennessee even scored. Like, how was the game plan anything other than give the ball to Derrick Henry?
Those sentences make sense? You don't think how they scored and you don't know how they lost?
Yeah, I know. It's sort of conflicting statements. I
got you. Go ahead.
But they're both like confusing points to me of like the Titans didn't have Julio Jones and didn't have A.J. Brown. Like, who are you throwing the ball to?
Alan Fursker?
Exactly.
I don't know if his first name is Alan or not.
I don't have a clue. I didn't even know his last name was Fursker. But like it was fun to watch the game and everything else. Like, it was a good time.
Oh, was that on TV?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I didn't get to see the end of it though because I had an employee call in sick to the ice cream shop, so I had to go in.
So wait a minute. It was on national television?
I don't think it was at the end of the Bills game. They played the Jets game.
Gotcha. Because man, I can't imagine the Jets game being on TV. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah, Jets Titans. Nobody's tuning in for that. But it was an interesting game at the end. And then Kenny Golladay getting it done in overtime for the Giants.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of that game either. I obviously didn't watch any of these games, but I'm it's always good when New York teams win. People seem to be in a better mood. The hyped game of the week was Tampa Bay, New England.
Lived up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch that game either, but I was very closer than I would have expected anyway, because I'm not really sold on New England being any good.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Chris Collinsworth is way higher on Mac Jones at this point in his career than I am. I'm not down on him. Like, I think he's perfectly fine for a rookie, but it's the same way, like, Josh Allen's rookie year. You couldn't come out and be like, wait till you see it's going to be great. You're like, I mean, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about this maybe last week or 2 weeks ago where at least there were flashes.
Yes.
Where Allen, you're like, okay, if he can do this, then he could play. So, and maybe Mac Jones is doing that. I haven't watched any of his games yet this either, so I don't know. I'll take Collinsworth expertise over mine.
I mean, sure, he seems okay, but I think it's just too much.
But he's
hype.
Also a media guy, so he's got to hype. And not hype, so whatever.
No, and it's Cole Beasley got into the news again. I don't know if you saw this songs around football. No. He put out a tweet that basically said, the only place I get booed is at our home stadium, nowhere else.
That's awesome.
What happened here? And then
it's not awesome for him, but it's awesome that he's not,
The hashtag was let them in. Because, I mean, Buffalo only allows vaccinated people in. So if you are unvaccinated.
Well, you saw that he paid for everybody's, like, tickets who wasn't vaccinated, who had to, like, they couldn't go to the games anymore, so he, like, bought their tickets out or something.
I love Cole Beasley.
Yeah, he's a great player.
I know. And he seems like a good dude.
Yeah.
I want to hang out with him. What
else? Cardinals. They're probably the best team. They're number one in my power rankings. We'll get to that in a minute.
I can't really argue. I can, but they're dominant right now.
Yeah, they look good. I mean,
Oh, so are the Bills. Like the
Bills are great,
shutouts,
but they lost to the
freaking
Steelers.
They did lose to the freaking Steelers. You're right.
So until that goes away,
that's never going to go away.
So
they could win the Super Bowl.
Do they play the Cardinals
this
year? That will trump the Steelers loss if the Bills can beat the Cardinals. I'm not sure what their schedule is.
I don't even know if they play each other.
Yeah, probably not. But I don't know.
They played last year, so I kind of doubt they're playing each other again.
Oh yeah, then probably definitely not.
That was the Hail Murray last year.
Oh yeah,
Kyler Murray flung it down.
God help me. Well, I had Kyler Murray on my fantasy team last year, so that was probably helpful. I do have the Cardinals. Let's do the top five here while we're thinking about it. Unless you have any other NFL notes that you'd like to clean up before we go into the top and bottom fives.
No, Tom Brady's still absurd.
I was upset Gronk didn't get to play.
I was too. That would have been more fun.
My boy.
But that's all right. What are you going to do? I'm more impressed with the Bills' defense than I am even with the offense at this point. And the offense is good. But the defense is just at a different level right now than what we've seen. Well,
they were always, and maybe you know this, but they always seemed to be really good against the pass last year, but it kind of gave up some runs here and there. But I guess they've sealed up those holes, if that's what you're saying.
I agree with that statement.
All right. Well, I mentioned I had the Cardinals number 1. I do have the Bills number 2, Mr. Hussong.
All right. I'll take it, even with that ugly loss to the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, it was week 1. That's the best out you have is that you were rusty or whatnot. I mean, everybody's rusty in week 1, so maybe you get some weird
honest
outcomes.
To God, though, that game, you're a blocked punt and a questionable pass interference call away from a very different outcome. That's it. And I don't mean to take anything away from the Steelers because the next throw that Ben Roethlisberger made, that touchdown pass, was one of the most accurate passes I have ever seen thrown. Yeah. That thing's off by an inch in any direction. It's not a touchdown.
It was reminiscent, not exactly, obviously, because of the magnitude of the Santonio Holmes back of the end zone against the Cardinals. It had to be there.
Or nowhere else.
Right. And the receiver had to make a great catch to actually pull it down, too.
I agree.
So I have the Bills number 2.
Okay.
I have the Buccaneers number 3. I mean,
I can't argue.
Their defense is really legit. So, I mean, they might have the best defense in the league. They definitely have the best run defense in the league. And obviously their offense is loaded, and I expect Gronk to come back at some point. So, and they have other tight ends at this point. They can just keep rotating in and out. I have the Cleveland Browns number 4.
I would laugh at this until yesterday, but the Vikings offense is no joke.
Oh, they're good.
And holy crap, they got shut down.
Yeah, and so Cleveland, they had this hype 2 years ago, I think it was, and then really last year too. People have kind of forgotten about them, but their defense has a ton of young players on it, right? So they're just kind of coming to age here. So I have the Browns number 4. I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield fan, but he's gritty enough that he can win games.
On a great team, he can get the job done. He's not carrying your team, but if you got a great team around him.
Right. I mean, hopefully, for that team to be higher than 4, to seemingly to get ahead of those other 3 teams, Odell Beckham's going to have to be Odell Beckham of old a little bit. So, right now, he's not that, but this is only a second game back, so we'll see.
Agreed.
And I have the Raiders at number 5. There was other teams
ahead of the Rams,
ahead of the Packers. Cowboys were also in the discussion.
Fair.
I don't know. Let's go with the Raiders for week 4 in the 5 spot. I'm not sure how long the 5 spot was really close.
Listen, controversial opinion. I think the AFC West is a better division than the NFC West. Top to bottom, I think it's a better division.
Oh, well, after week 4, it's a hot take. We'll see in week 8.
It's a hot take, but top to bottom, I mean, listen, the Broncos are bringing them down a little, but they're 3-1.
Yeah.
Like, that's the worst case scenario is you got a 3-1 team that is inarguably the least talented team in the division.
Yeah, for sure.
And but you got the Chiefs, you've got the Chargers, and are the Chiefs not in your top 5?
No.
Wow.
No.
I don't really blame you, actually. They
haven't looked good.
They won this week.
I mean, they haven't looked like the Chiefs.
That's fair.
So,
well, they're just losing close games they were winning last year. Yeah. They've got to fix that.
And this is week 4, so
yeah, it's still early. Yeah. I think on the bottom side of things, this is a toss-up, but I'm gonna go with the Lions are the worst team in football right now.
They definitely have the worst defense.
Oh my God, they don't even exist. Like, what are you even putting out there? I don't mean to disrespect. That's not true. I do. It's just horrible. I got the Jags were the other one that were in the run.
Their defense is also terrible. I only know this because those are the 2 defenses I target for DraftKings when I'm playing fantasy. I'm like, who are the Lions playing? I'm playing there. Except I really wasn't a fan of the Bears this week, and I was like, I don't want to play any Bears. But yeah, the Jacksonville and who was it? Thursday they played, right?
Yes.
And Joe Burrow lit them up.
Yeah, I mean it was a mess.
Their secondary is terrible in Jacksonville, but yeah, they're both terrible.
They're both terrible teams. I mean, I'm giving the nod that the Jaguars are a little bit better because I feel like, all right, I'm going to give you the rookie QB pass of like, you got a rookie and he looks pretty good, so there's something to build, and I would expect him to get better, whereas in Detroit, I think Jared Goff is Jared Goff. He is who he is. And he's not bad. He's a little below Baker Mayfield. Like, he's on the Rams. He could get the job done. Now you're on the Lions. It's not as good anymore, boys. No. It's getting a little ugly. After that, this is the 3-4 spot, also a toss-up. I'm going to go with the Jets are worse than the Giants.
Okay.
I'm not giving them the rookie QB benefit that I gave the Jaguars for no reason other than I just don't like the Jets, I guess. Maybe not. But I do think the Giants have a better overall roster, but no offensive line. And that has been the Giants' problem for 10 years, is they just will not get offensive line addressed. And then they're like, yeah, well, we got Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. Like, great, but maybe somebody could, slow down the defense from getting into the backfield. Also, Daniel Jones went for 400 yards, first time in his career this weekend. Good for you, Danny Dimes.
I mean, took overtime, but sure.
Shut up.
Still legit. Still legit.
Still counts. So then the Jets, the Giants, and then this is a sort of a turn. I don't know if this is surprising or not, but I have the Atlanta Falcons as the next worst team in the NFL right now. Like we talked about this last year with them too. They are the most creative team at losing games I have ever witnessed.
They love to lose.
It's incredible. Last year was fun because it was just like the NFC West was the worst division, and then who was the 5th spot. This year it's a little more interesting.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think the Falcons one's going to hold up, but right now they suck.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Matt Ryan's past his peak, so I mean, they don't have Julio Jones, regardless.
Nope.
Mike Davis is washed up. I don't know. They're a bad team.
Yeah,
they're 1 year. They're 1 year away from rebuilding, going for the first draft pick, basically. So you're probably right.
Yeah, it's not good.
Is that 5?
That's 5.
Congratulations to those bottom 5 for
Lions, Jaguars, Jets, Giants, Falcons.
Nice. Want to talk a little NBA real quick?
I mean, I am the in-house expert on all things National Basketball
Well, the games haven't started, so you're still an expert.
Oh, thank God. All right.
The games haven't started, so we're just talking about NBA. COVID, vaccines, and NBA players. Yeah,
I do like this topic.
So I fielded an all-star team.
I saw it.
It's pretty good, right? Kyrie, Bradley Beal, Draymond, Jonathan Isaac, Michael Porter Jr. Now, I had Alan Wiggins as my
Allen?
Sorry.
You just like the name Allen today.
Andrew Wiggins. I feel like you know who Alan Wiggins was? He was literally a second baseman for the Baltimore Orioles like in 1982.
I don't want to age or anything, but I wasn't even born yet, so I don't remember that.
Andrew Wiggins
went
and got his shot.
Did he really?
Yeah, just breaking news 12 minutes ago.
Wow.
So he will not be forced to sit out home games.
Oh, that's disappointing.
So I also saw something like I think it's the Bucks. Maybe it's other NBA teams. Maybe it's all NBA teams. But I think I saw the Bucks are requiring vaccines if you sit courtside. So the tickets only, I guess, if you're within breathing distance of the court.
It's amazing.
6 feet thing.
It's amazing that we're still doing that.
So I don't know. We'll see how the NBA starts here soon.
Who is advising these people?
Who knows? Who knows?
Oh my God.
But I don't know. I find it interesting that the NBA has probably stood up, or at least these handful of players. I mean, we saw Jonathan Isaac's statement. If you haven't, I would encourage anybody to go listen to that. I'm not sure if that was a planned response, but it couldn't have been better. I mean, the dude nailed every point that he needed to nail, all the way from I already had COVID to it's not my job to make sure other people, get their vaccine kind of thing. So it's interesting to me that the some of the big shots in the NBA, even it took LeBron a long time to get the shot too. Apparently,
really?
That was his refusal was not news for a long time, but when he finally got it, they were like, "Oh yeah, he got it too." So I don't know. Like I said, I feel like the NBA versus vaccine mandate is not going to go away anytime soon here. So
I mean, it adds an interesting element to the discussion. Because it's easy to dismiss all of the vaccine hesitant people as redneck Trump supporters. Like that's the image that is portrayed all the times. And then you get up there and you listen to Alan Wiggins talk about it.
Either way.
And you're like, well, I kind of doubt he's a Trump supporter. That doesn't really fit the image of what we were hoping for. And then people all of a sudden, how quickly they will turn on you like, idiot. He just doesn't understand. He's ignorant. He doesn't get it. I literally listened to there was somebody on Sports Talk Radio that I was flipping through channels, and they played the statement that he made about, again, what you just said. Was he the one that was claiming religious exemption and then it got denied?
No, that was Andrew Wiggins.
That was Wiggins.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So it was Wiggins that I was listening to give the statement, and then the guy said, so you know what I took from that? That he doesn't have an answer. He doesn't know. He just doesn't get it, and then he got caught. And I listened, and I just laughed. I was like, that's what you took away from that statement. I mean, come on. And this is the thing. Look, we've talked about this before. It's not new. It is a non-sterilizing vaccine. I can't wait until these players are required to get boosters because the second shot didn't work. And they got a COVID outbreak, and they're all going to be so confused. We're all vaccinated. How could this have possibly
There's
happen?
Definitely going to be a COVID outbreak.
At NBA games?
Yeah. And it's all, they're like at something like 90% vaccinated.
Right.
So
it's going to be the 5%. See, it's your fault.
It'll be interesting.
It's amazing how much people will stick to that narrative despite all of the evidence to the contrary. If you're like, look at the places with really high vaccination rates and really low, it's not really changing.
I mean, it's weird that the unvaccinated are killing all the vaccinated and living by doing that, right? So the unvaccinated is killing all the vaccinated people, but they're still living. Is that the agenda, right?
Now
they're pushing?
that right there, that is a sign of a great vaccine.
It's weird.
Sign me up.
All right, let's switch off of sports and go to clicks. Mm-hmm. Prince Andrew. I just wanted to touch base on this because I thought I would follow up.
The golden child of the royal family.
Yeah, something like that.
The Hunter Biden of the royal family.
So we mentioned that Virginia Giuffre, who is one of probably the face of the victims,
certainly the most well known.
Sure, and she's kind of gone through some of the legal obstacles that needed to go to try to get Prince Andrew, to kind of be accountable and responsible, and maybe see a judge or a trial of some sort. But anyway, so she filed a lawsuit in the Manhattan district, I think it was, but it's a federal lawsuit, and he has till October 29th to respond to this lawsuit now. So I'm not sure what to make of it, if anything, but at least there's a date that we can kind of look at that I feel like is on the docket kind of thing, that maybe there'll be some movement towards a Prince Andrew, I don't know, held accountable.
I don't
have no hope, but
I'm done. I'm checked out. I'm not checked out. I'm still very interested. I've just given up on the outcome. That's it. I don't expect anything to happen. I just want more people to know about it.
Well, here's my take is that the outcome will always happen as the evil become closer to death. So like this Bill Clinton, as he's ready to die, all the stuff will come out. Prince Andrew and all that stuff, it'll come out after they die so that nothing can be held accountable. That's and they're just dragging this out, right? They're just dragging out literally as long as they possibly can so that all the people will die before they have to come to public light. So
yeah, I'm not normally a fan of public shaming, but Bill Clinton is gives a really strong case.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Well, I mean, I don't want to use such words, but yeah, more or less. I don't know if you saw that thing a few weeks ago when they were talking about William Barr, Trump's attorney general, was a CIA lawyer back in the day when we were running drugs out of Colombia through a little airport in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Roger Clinton was spearheading it. And they had like a letter that William Barr sent to Bill Clinton, and he was governor at the time, and said something to the effect of, if you can get this done, we'll discuss in greater detail that new political opportunity we discussed, and it looks very likely. And then son of a gun got the presidency like 6 years later. It's not weird.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's normal.
I think
live in really normal times.
I think there's some Epstein ties to that thing down there, too.
Oh, my God, yes. Listen, this is the stuff we don't learn about. Then you learn about it, and you're like, I feel dirty.
Yeah.
I feel so dirty. I don't want to be here anymore. This is so bad. We're doing this on purpose.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Hopefully we get some something from this thing here. So, I mean, I'm reading some time to get some updates for you. Until 29. Prince Andrew will have until October 29th to serve a responsive complaint. An initial oral argument scheduled for October 13th will be vacated. So we got some news. Hopefully it will come anyway. So
fingers crossed.
So we have never talked about this on the show. I don't think so anyway, unless we brought it into some kind of conspiracy theory, but I don't think we did. Are you familiar with Havana syndrome?
I am, actually.
So for those of you who don't know, this has been going on for a few years, I feel like, in most other parts of the country, but mostly in Cuba, which is the title for Havana syndrome here. So
that makes sense.
Apparently, these are high-pitched noises that are causing brain injuries to officials or whatnot. And the U.S. had thought that maybe Russia was implementing microwave technology. Some technology that was targeting our officials in Havana and other prominent people in Havana, and apparently some of these other places around the world as well.
Sure.
But as it turns out, Mr. Hussong, it's crickets. So the U.S. has determined that crickets are causing the high-pitched sound that is causing these brain injuries, quote-unquote brain injuries. Did you know that the House passed a bill, I think in May, to give health benefits to those affected with Havana syndrome?
I mean, it was the right thing to do.
Well, they were crickets. What are we doing?
It's kind of funny.
I mean, it's stupid, but funny.
It's kind of funny that, like, we were literally trying to, like, cause diplomatic, what's the right word here? We were trying to diplomatically fight with another country over this thing.
Yeah.
And then it turned out like, imagine being the one that discovered it. You got to go back to like the Department of Defense and everybody and be like, hey guys, let's dial down the public rhetoric.
I mean, I remember reading articles about this when it was happening. And even then they were like, well, some people think it's just crickets. Like, so like, it wasn't like it was an unknown thing, but apparently they got confirmation. So it's crickets in Havana, people.
Well, now that they've put it out publicly, I don't believe it's crickets anymore.
Maybe probably true.
Now I think they do have a microwave sound gun.
I mean, I'm not going to get into any of that.
As soon as they admit it, like, I don't think it's true anymore.
UFOs.
I mean, I'm sure UFOs are real, but I don't believe the government's take on them. How's that?
About something more disturbing, for sure. Are you familiar with Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller?
I am not.
So Stu Scheller, I'm going to play a video here for you guys, and you can listen to his words himself there, Mr. Hussong, and this way you can know exactly what we're talking about.
Sounds good. His name's not Alan, right?
His name's not Alan. Stu Scheller. So I know some of you guys didn't hear that there on the video here, but I'll have that on the audio there. So please be sure to go listen to that video. I posted a link into chat there, so you can go listen to it. But so Mr. Hussong, you heard his words there. Do you know where Mr. Scheller is, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller is today? He is in jail for making those comments indefinitely without charges being held.
Wow.
Yeah. It's for his health, they say. They made some kind of assertion that he was a danger to himself and therefore put him in jail to protect him from himself.
Okay.
Without really rehashing all of Afghanistan, we talked about that a little bit on our show when that was occurring. I don't think he was wrong in pretty much any of that. Like, he basically was saying, why did we close Bagram before we got rid of everybody else? That makes 100% sense to me. Clearly, we've talked about how the withdrawal was rushed, or at least done with very little care of impending outcome, regardless of what anybody was saying there. And this guy basically calls leadership in and say, hey, what the hell are we doing? And because of that, they throw him in jail.
I mean, it's sadly predictable, but it's always... it's just so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, the powers that be, the forces that are kind of controlling the globe at this point, have, no care for any human life whatsoever. And if anybody gets in their way, they're going to make sure that they're taken out. And that's pretty much what I feel like what's happened here. So this guy drew attention to the fact that our military made, a bunch of blunders, and he basically wants to know, how did that happen when we have apparently so much training and we're the expert military leaders in the world? How could this happen? And because of that questioning, he's in jail. So
I mean, it's a reasonable question to say, how did it go this badly? Because it really looks like it was either gross incompetence or willful, or it was a political move by the senior leaders and chain of command to make it look that bad because the powers that be didn't actually want to leave Afghanistan yet.
Yeah, that's exactly where I feel like. I mean, they threw a hissy fit, and they were like, "Oh, you want us to leave? Okay, we'll leave. Here we left,
and we're gonna make it as bad as possible to maximize the pressure on you that you got to turn around and say, no, let's stay." Is that?
And even if it's not for Afghanistan, to your point, even if it's not for Afghanistan to go back there, any future conflict, they'll can point to this and be like, "Well, we can't do Afghanistan again," and literally they just botched the whole thing on purpose.
I mean, it's entirely possible. And now this guy calling. Now here's the thing: like, we can say that when you're speaking about it in sort of the situationally or as a hypothetical, you're like, yeah, it makes sense. But then you think about what that actually means, and that costs people their lives. Like, that costs not just Afghanis, not just people that live in Afghanistan or worked or helped us or didn't help us or were just civilians. That also costs service members their lives. Like, people died during that withdrawal that did not need to die. And so this gentleman coming forward and saying, hey, wait a minute, you went and testified under oath that the Afghan National Security Forces were prepared to take over and that this wouldn't happen. Now you're coming and saying, well, we were wrong. But now we also have all the info and all the intel you were looking at the time. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it. And there was no way to reasonably draw that conclusion. There was no way you could have objectively looked at the situation on the ground and concluded that this was going to go smoothly. There is no possible way you could have drawn that conclusion and that this plan be executed without either being grossly incompetent, which I don't think too many people at the highest levels of chain of command of the military are. Some, sure, but not all. There's no way. It defies logic. It defies reason. It defies common sense that you could have gotten it that bad. There was absolutely no reason to believe, and this is when we go to the Afghanistan papers, and they interviewed a lot of these same people 3 or 4 years ago. They were saying the Afghan army is not close to being ready. We have no idea what we're doing. They're not even close. They have ghost soldiers that are just on the ranks that we know that we're paying that aren't there, but the generals are just keeping the money.
That's a great gig.
Oh, my God.
Ghost soldier?
You're not real. That's just a general's like, I got 10 people right here. And they're like, what are their numbers? Like 4 and 6. Okay, here's money. Like, we knew this was happening. They can't say they didn't. And that's what we know as a public. Imagine what these guys actually knew. Like, these guys know. And so for him to turn around and say, listen, I lost friends. And not only losing friends, I have killed people, taken a human life because of your lies. And now you come in, and now more people are having to do this, and you're making this go bad on purpose. And at least that's my fear. And if it's not true, for the love of God, please come forward and explain to me how it's not. And the military response from the Marine Corps is they're going to charge him with conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman, disobeying lawful orders, although I'm not exactly sure what order he disobeyed.
Listen, he actually asked to be discharged, honorably discharged, and they said no, go to jail.
Wow.
Yeah. So he tried to get out.
And they're going to make an example out of him, and it's sad. And this is where, as somebody who did serve, like my faith is broken. My faith in the service is broken. I would not go back in today. There's no shot. I don't want my kids to do it. I never thought I would say that, but I don't, because this is what you're dealing with now, and this is what you sign up for. You sign up to serve, and they run you. That's the truth, but it's service to the country, and I grew up thinking that was something that everybody should do and benefit from, and it was in a lot of ways very good for me, and I learned a lot. It's also bad for me in other ways, but that was the price you pay. And now I look at it differently, because now I'm looking at it and thinking, you know what? Between mandating this vaccine for no beneficial reason whatsoever, I mean, you're talking, if you're in the military, you got to be in some kind of shape. Yes, there's a few outliers who are there and they're grossly out of shape, and they, pencil whip the PT test together to pass it, even though they couldn't pass a PT test on their best day. Sorry, PT is physical training tests. You have to pass those in the military. But most, you got to be in some kind of shape. You do. Like, you've got to maintain physical fitness. It's a big part of the military. Why are we mandating a vaccine for these people? I mean, force readiness? Bullshit. You're so full of it, it's not even funny. And you're not thinking of, like, well, we know there's adverse effects, but, oh, well. So my issue with this, with every mandate, is it's a non-sterilizing vaccine that best case scenario is going to give you some level of protection for 6 to 7 months and then go away. So,
yeah, and honestly, I mean, I'm in agreement. Forcing them to get the vaccine is literally some of the most trivial stuff that's actually they're having to deal with at this point.
Right, and now, so that was where I started, like, all right, what are we doing? Like, if I was in, what would I do? And now this guy comes out and rightly asks the question of, hey, guys, how? How did this happen? Because it looks really, really bad. And instead of just, all right, go home and get out, they threw him in jail. Like, so I'm supposed to still come out and be fully supportive of this particular organization? I'm having a hard time getting there. I'm having a very hard time getting to the point of, I think that they're still trying to do good. Because I think the average soldier, Marine, airman, sailor, yes, I think they are, and Coast Guardsmen, I think they are trying to do good. The people running the organizations, I don't. I've lost all faith. And listen, I'll let you pick which one it is. I either don't have any faith that you're competent, or I don't have any faith that you're trying to do good. My fear is that you are entirely competent, and this is exactly what you're going for. That's my real fear. Yeah. Is this, you're getting the exact result you wanted.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at.
So, well, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, we'll report back on this and see. Since you brought it up, let's talk a little bit about vaccines. But before we get into the boosters, I just wanted to, we talked about the New York's healthcare mandate last Monday. It took effect there. I don't know, whatever. Do you remember? Did we talk? We didn't talk about this on the air because it happened after. But
right.
You remember the next day they came back, Governor Hochul, basically victoriously claiming that now 92% of our healthcare workers are vaccinated because of the mandate. But what she forgot to tell everybody is that they basically lopped off all the people that fired and quit from the denominator so that they got 92%. She's a lizard person.
It's amazing. Listen, this doesn't make sense what we're doing.
Like, she literally stood up there, and there's no doubt that she was trying to,
see it worked.
Say, like, look, it worked. We got all these people who got vaccinated. No, that's not how it works.
Right.
It's just in it. And just to piggyback on this is why I'm bringing it up, because that's only part one, right? So that was only the hospitals. And so October 7th, I'm reading from our boy Bill Hammond at the Empire Center.
Oh, boy.
He has an article out here from September 28th. In a survey this month at the Home Care Association of New York State, a subset of 189 agencies projected that more than 12,000 of their workers would quit rather than accept the vaccination. So that's 189 out of 1,500 agencies in New York State. So 189 agencies are going to lose 12,000 workers. What about the other 1,300 and whatever it is, 11? There's going to be tens of thousands of healthcare workers that are going to quit because of this, setting these nursing homes back decades, it seems like. So maybe they'll get a late surge of acceptance of this vaccine. It doesn't seem likely. So this we got to look forward to this October 7th.
Luckily, go super well.
Yeah. Luckily I'm not in a nursing home at this point.
If you're going to get sick, I would do it soon, folks. Don't wait till it gets too late into October or November, because stuff's going to get stupid.
So we'll report back on this next week and see how that went into effect and how that's going to affect. But let's talk about boosters. So the FDA a while back voted down, did not recommend boosters for everybody.
Sure.
I think it was in the vote was like 16-3. I feel like, if I remember correctly. I think we reported on that.
It was overwhelming.
Overwhelmingly, yeah. And this was on the heels of having two Fed or FDA leaders of the vaccine there, the director and the deputy director of some agency within the FDA that basically quit because they did not, right, because they said basically, hey, this is not science anymore. This whole decision is being politicized about boosters. And then the FDA went and they did not approve boosters for anyone or everybody, but then they went ahead and approved boosters for those 65 and over. And how is this played out so far, Ben?
So
did you get your booster?
Does it count as a booster if you didn't get the first one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is where I'm having a hard time. So they come out and they say, all right, we got this vaccine. It's safe. It's effective. Well, then you say, well, what about the VAERS data that's really troubling? Like, well, you can't rely on that. That's nonsense. Like, okay, but in your thing where you were going to test the safety, that was what you pointed to and said, see, we can track adverse effects in real time. So we're not using that anymore because it's not accurate? Exactly. Okay, well, where is the NIH or the CDC or the FDA? Where are they tracking adverse effects and measuring them? Does anybody have an answer to that question, by the way? Because I still haven't been able to find it.
No, they don't want that data.
Weird. That's totally normal that you came out with a brand new vaccine that was developed inside of a year because of Operation Warp Speed, and you're not interested in long-term safety. But at least the initial long-term safety data will be collected at the end of 2022. So then we can look at it. So we got that going for us. Thank God.
Hindsight is 2020.
Sure. At least we got full approval somehow of a vaccine without long-term safety data. Not emergency use authorization, full approval. Cool. All right. So the safety questions are there. How would we know if they weren't safe if you're telling us not to look at and VAERS is admittedly very flawed. I'm not telling you it's not, but why don't we have anything else yet? Okay, that's my first problem. Effective. No, it's not. Sorry, guys. 94% was a nonsensical number, just as a recap. In the study, Shawn, if you got the placebo and I got the real vaccine in the study, right? This is Pfizer's data. You get your first shot, I get my first shot. You get your second shot, I get my second shot. You get COVID 3 days later with the placebo. You got COVID according to the study. I get COVID 3 days later. Doesn't count because I'm not fully vaccinated until 14 days later. So if I get the vaccine and 13 days later I get COVID, doesn't count. Not only that, as long as I don't have symptoms by the time day 14 comes around, I count as the vaccine worked. That's amazing. It's my favorite thing ever. But anyways, neither here nor there. So then they came out and said, well, it looks like Dr. Fauci, zero COVID in the people that got the vaccine. Dr. Walensky, zero COVID. 2 idiots with a podcast. That's not what it says. That's not close to what it's going to hold up to be. That's a nonsensical conclusion. Oh, and it looks, early indications are that maybe there's a possibility it could have some impact on reducing your capacity to spread it to other people. Again, 2 idiots with a podcast. No, it doesn't. That's not what it says at all. You can't draw that conclusion. That's insanity. Son of a gun, the science changed. Turns out it doesn't affect spread. Weird. Turns out it's not 94% effective at killing off COVID. Turns out there was 0% chance of it completely killing COVID. Weird how we keep getting that right. I love when the science changes to what you and I said 6 months ago. That's always a really reassuring feeling that 2 idiots with a podcast have a better correct percentage than the head of the CDC and NIH. That's cool. That's real. Oh, and then the CDC came out and said, it's hitting kids. And then 2 idiots with a podcast went, no, it's not. That's a very slight increase and is largely described by RSV and other seasonal variations that are not COVID-related but are then testing positive in the hospitals. 3 months later, that turned out to be true. Weird. It's not disconcerting at all. All right, so now here we are. Not safe. Well, we don't know if it's safe. It's probably safe. I don't have any idea. There are some adverse effects, and we're not tracking them. Cool. It's not nearly as effective as what it was initially made out to be. Right after you get the vaccine, there is a period of time where it appears you are actually more likely to get COVID. And then 14 days later, your antibodies go up, and it comes out. All right, cool. And then it goes away. 6 months later, your efficacy, which was nonsense to begin with, is now measured at 40%, and it's only by reducing severe symptoms, hospitalizations, and deaths. It's no longer about not getting COVID. Now it's just not going to be as bad. It's a nice shift to the goalpost. I like it. And then they came out and said it appears that the vaccine immunity is going to be even better than natural immunity or acquired immunity. And some 2 idiots with a podcast went, that's not what it says. That's not true at all. That, like, the natural immunity, if anything, you should be concluding that it looks far better. That came out. According to the Israeli study, 13 times stronger to have acquired immunity compared to vaccine immunity. Weird how they got that one wrong, too. Again, just that's totally normal that these experts in their field keep getting things this obvious, this wrong. Now we need boosters. And, finally, some people kind of went, wait, what do you mean? Like, we got to get a booster? I got the vaccine, and now you're making me get a booster? And this is for everybody? So they got this panel of experts together, and they said, and Pfizer showed up with literally one study involving 300 people as their justification for why we needed everybody over 16 to be eligible for a booster shot. One study, 300 people, as the only evidence because they expected it to just get rubber stamped and move along. But the panel of experts, to their credit, said, no, you have no data. You have nothing to show us and we know there are some risks, especially for younger people. Why would we give them another shot? That's crazy. And so the CDC or the FDA said, okay, well, how about for people over 65? And the panel went, yeah, that makes sense. People over 65, immunocompromised, or people with certain conditions, they should get it. So that's it. Let's just take a quick look at what that's morphed into. Of the only people who are supposed to be getting booster shots. Those over 65, those with significant compromised immune systems. Now, here's what we got instead. I'm going to make sure I get this exactly correct. I just had to look up what percentage of the population was obese because that, it turns out, that matters a lot. All right. Anybody 65 years or older, anybody age 18 and over who lives in a long-term care setting, anyone 18 or over who have underlying medical conditions, anyone over 18 who work in high-risk settings, and anyone 18 plus who live in high-risk settings. So let's see what that means. Living in a long-term care facility is relatively straightforward. Live in a nursing home, assisted living, something like that. I get it. I think there's a reasonable assumption that you have significant health issues if you live in a long-term care facility. That's reasonable. I don't necessarily think every one of them needs it, but okay, fine. I'm going to skip the underlying medical conditions because I'm going to come back and end with that one. So let's see, like people who live and work in high-risk areas. So what would that mean to you, Shawn?
Level 3 biohazard lab.
It's a very nice reference. Oh. That was well done. Maybe people that work in hospitals, like emergency rooms, patient-facing things, health clinics. And those are on here. First responders, healthcare workers, firefighters, police, congregate care staff, food and agriculture workers, obviously.
I mean,
sure. Manufacturing workers are apparently in a high-risk activity.
Are the agriculture outside or indoors?
I mean, it doesn't just specify, so it's both, obviously.
Okay. Just checking.
Correction workers, I get what you're going for, maybe. U.S. postal workers, who are also exempt from the vaccine mandates that every other federal organization had to do, but that's not weird. Public transit workers, grocery store workers, and education staff. Teachers, support staff, daycare workers. Guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but if you want to talk about who's at an increased risk of getting COVID and getting sick, they've tested teachers like 10 different times. Want to know what the conclusion was on every single one of them? Teachers have no higher risk of severe COVID-19. Teachers are not at an increased risk whatsoever, but we've expanded this definition of who gets the booster shot to include them without any justification whatsoever. That's not weird. Not at all. All right, well, let's go back now. So on top of that, now let's talk about underlying medical conditions. Now, you expect cancer, heart disease, obesity. Sure, and I agree with all of that. But it also includes anybody who's overweight. Overweight, Shawn. What percentage of American adults do you suppose would be classified as not obese, which is already a pretty large portion of our population, just overweight?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would guess in the 70% range.
Listen, I can't find good data on it, but over 30% of us are obese.
Right.
All right? Like, that's
I would consider myself
number.
Overweight, but not obese.
I think I'm in the same boat.
Right.
I'm relatively healthy, but I'm probably...
But overweight is literally, an arbitrary... Whatever they decide whatever's weight is, you're 1 pound over that, you're overweight. So.
Yeah, it's defined as, I think it was a BMI. It comes out of BMI.
Yeah.
That's weird. So instead, where the panel of experts came out and said, hey, COVID booster shots do not make sense for people that are under 65 and in relatively good health. Like, this doesn't make any sense. 65 plus with health conditions, okay, you can get booster shots. And somehow the NIH, CDC, FDA, whomever you want, turn that into essentially everybody gets a booster shot. If you want it, come and get it. Now, if the panel of experts, and again, we're trusting the experts at all times for good reason, has concluded the risk is not justified by the purported benefit for this group of people. Teachers being on this list makes no sense. And I don't mean to besmirch or belittle teachers. You have an amazing profession, and I don't mean to demean it or belittle it. You're not at an increased risk of getting COVID-19. This has been so thoroughly studied that it's inarguable. Like, there is no data to support the idea that teachers are at increased risk. None. There was a fear early on that they would be. But then it turned out this miraculous thing happened. Kids do not spread COVID-19 to adults with any meaningful efficacy whatsoever. Can it happen? Sure. But the word can is doing a lot of work in that sentence. I can get struck by lightning when I walk out of the door. I can. I can go on a killing spree tomorrow and kill 10 people. Seems unlikely, but I can. So if you're basing it on can, you're insane. That's nuts. It is a question of comparative risk and benefit. Teachers aren't there, but somehow we're opening up and saying, yeah, go get your booster shot. Like, that doesn't make sense. Manufacturers, agriculture workers, how? They work outside in farms. And you're saying they're at an increased risk of COVID? Like, why are we doing this? I don't understand how it turns into, well, here's what these people said, and then our government has basically opened it up. If you're overweight in America, good enough. Like, why do we have a panel of experts for anything? Like, why did they even go through this? All they did is it turned out they backdoored it, it got rubber stamped, and it's for everybody now. So they took the advice of their experts and then disregarded it. Now, I've been called a science denier for doing the exact same thing. What are they? Oh, I forgot. They are the science. Yeah. That's a healthy attitude to take.
Yeah, no. People love to make their own little policies because they make them feel like they're doing good in the world, and regardless of whether or not the science agrees with them or not, they're going to try to do something. Whether or not they never do nothing.
It's amazing. It is amazing watching this play out in real time. And then it's amazing when things like hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or vitamin D are proven to have at least some positive impact. And let me just say this for comparison's sake. If you're going to argue your definition of effective is what the vaccine offers, then you cannot argue that ivermectin is ineffective. If that's the threshold for effectiveness, ivermectin meets it hands down. Now, if you're of the opinion that the vaccine is ineffective, then we can have a discussion on whether or not ivermectin reaches the definition of effective for you. I'm on board. That's an actual debate. But if the threshold is what the vaccine currently offers protection-wise, ivermectin, no question, is an effective treatment for COVID-19. Doesn't mean it's a silver bullet. Doesn't mean that it solves the problem altogether. But it's an effective treatment when taken early and in proper dosage. It even has great impact late, but it's, again, less. We ignore it. No, we call it horse paste.
There's literally a full-on press to get everybody vaccinated, which is just
crazy,
mind-bogglingly crazy.
Listen, I'm trying to make sense of this from a reasonable scientific standpoint of why are you including teachers? Why are you including agriculture workers?
We should have known all this, though, back when they first unrolled the vaccine, right? I mean, I remember making somewhat of a Facebook joke about it, being like, they don't know how to unroll the vaccine. I'm like, here's a plan. How about start with the 90-year-olds, go to the 80-year-olds, and work your way down, right? But no, that's not what happened. The teachers union got involved. All these unions got involved. All these levels of workers. I mean, listen, I'm guessing that some of these, if not maybe the majority of those people, maybe had some concerns or were scared and really wanted the vaccine maybe early on in the time. But we're way past that now. And as you just laid out, there's not a whole lot of reason to have the majority of the group getting boosters, getting the vaccine, regardless of getting boosters.
If you are a teacher and you got your booster, want to get your booster, God bless you. Truly, I'm not here to tell anybody else how to live. But the CDC, or the NIH, I guess, would be responsible for this. The NIH opening it up for if you're a young teacher and in reasonable health. The panel of experts came out and said the risk is not worth the benefit for you. And then the government comes out and says, come get your booster. Like, understand, you're just disagreeing with the experts. You're siding with the government bureaucrats over the panel of experts and deciding to take that risk. God bless you, but you should know what you're getting into. That's my only point in all of this. Everything I raise, every point I raise, I'm not telling anybody else to get the vaccine or to not get the vaccine. That's not my thing. I've had people call and ask me, and my response every time is, it is not my place to tell you what to do about your health care. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm an idiot with a podcast. I just want good information, and this is nonsense. Like, this coming out and turning into that is bananas.
And unfortunately, kind of expected.
Totally predictable. Yeah. Right. And I remember having a conversation when they first rolled it out, and that first article came out and said it even indicates that maybe the vaccine stops the spread. And I was discussing it at a bar with some friends of mine. And I said it's not going to impact spread. And one of them, not in a mean way, like rolled his eyes very dismissively of like, yeah, see, you just don't know what you're talking about. And I went, yeah, we'll see. I read the same article, but then I read the study. And I'm telling you right now, there's no chance it's holding up. And he's like, yeah, well, you're just too far gone. I said, okay. It's weird. Gone. Again.
That's going to be the new name of the podcast. Too Far Gone.
Too Far. That's a good name, actually. It's an accurate one, too. I'm trying to make sense of this. If the objective is genuinely public health, why are we not following any of the science? Why are we still denying and not counting natural immunity amongst the same class or better?
Well, I know the reason for that. Because you can't monetize natural immunity.
No, you can't. You can't monetize that, and it's tough to monetize vitamin D, and it's tough to monetize ivermectin to any meaningful amount.
I mean, the idea of natural immunity, just real quickly, and then I want to switch subjects a little bit, but the idea that we have healthcare workers who have natural immunity and that we're not utilizing them in situations where that would benefit us as a community, as a society in general, is, again, just backwards. It's literally the opposite of what you should do.
It's about like conformity.
These people, whatever.
It doesn't make sense if the answer is, if the objective is truly public health, firing somebody who has naturally existing immunity to COVID because there's somehow a risk because they won't get vaccinated is insanity, and nobody should be supportive of this.
It's not about health.
Crazy.
It's not about health. It's about compliance.
Right. And if you're on the side of mandates and censorship, historically speaking, you're probably not going to end up being on the right side.
All right. Let's talk about somebody else who's not on the right side here. Mike Pompeo. Well, he's not on the right side, right?
Depends on the issue.
I
Who
guess.
knows?
So we talked about this briefly last week, but I kind of wanted to bring it up and touch on it in a little bit more detail. So there was an article in Yahoo News. The authors were Zach Dorfman, Shawn Naylor, and Michael Isikoff. This basically outlines and details some of the thought process as most of this happened shortly after the Vault 7 release from WikiLeaks, which was on Mike Pompeo's watch. So he got his panties in a bunch and decided that he was basically going to figure out anything possible on how to end WikiLeaks, including discussions of assassination and kidnapping. From the
Our government doesn't do those things.
From the
We're the good
Ecuadorian,
guys.
yeah.
You liar.
So
out here spreading misinformation.
Pompeo's come out and said basically, that neither one of those things were ever voted on or planned or whatever. They were just basically
just spitballing.
Right. They were just spitballing. But he didn't deny any of that either, too. So so they didn't get to the level of, hey, we're going to do this, but it wasn't like for a lack of idea. Like the idea was there, and they were just like
for a plan.
Yeah, no.
I thought I read that he asked somebody to put together a plan of how they would kill him while he was in the embassy.
Well, so some of one of the craziest thing was they actually hypothesized that they thought Russia was going to try to kidnap Assange out of the Ecuadorian embassy to get him out to Moscow and protect him, and that they thought that there was going to be a gun battle in the streets of Ecuador between the Russians and the United States people. Like they were planning for this. Yeah. I mean, that would have been, literally movie-esque.
Right. Again, when it's a hypothetical, it sounds awesome. Real life, like, this is horrifying.
And Russia's like, we were never going to, this was basically a whole Russia thing too. Like Russia's like, we were never going to take Assange. Like, you guys are idiots. But we were like, and even in the article, and the author, I listened to an interview from the Isikoff there when he's like, well, there's no proof that the Russians were trying to do this, but our assertion is that the U.S. intelligence thought the Russians were trying to do this. So whatever.
Because it's what we would have done.
Yes. And now I want to touch one more thing on this, which was kind of it was, I'd say buried in here because it's definitely part of the article, but it's not getting anywhere near the attention that the Assange assassination kidnapping parts are, is that during the Edward Snowden, there was a documentary done by Laura Poitras, I think her name is, and Glenn Greenwald, who we've mentioned here multiple times on his reporting, and he was the lead reporter, the journalist who was covering, who Snowden gave basically all this information to. That Laura Poitras and Glenn Greenwald were trying to be relabeled as information brokers instead of journalists, so that basically they could institute spying on them. And so listening to a Glenn Greenwald interview about this aspect of this article, when he left Hong Kong from Snowden, he had people within the intelligence people said, do not come back to the United States, you're going to be arrested. So basically he stayed out of the United States for 11 months, went to Brazil, and finally had eventually came back, but he basically stayed out of the United States for 11 months, thinking that they were already spying on him, and that there was stuff that he knew that they were watching him, and that he was told that if he was going to land in the United States that he was going to be arrested. So I find that the most disturbing. I mean, the whole Julian Assange part is literally disturbing with a capital D. But the fact that they're trying to, like, Glenn Greenwald is, clearly he pushes against established, but he's a legitimate journalist who's been reporting things for decades, right? I mean, this is not. I mean, yeah, the Snowden thing is huge, and it was probably a life-changing story for him, but he was a journalist before that and a journalist after that. He's a journalist. He's not an information broker, and the fact that they can label a journalist an information broker so that they can spy on him is literally disturbing and goes against everything that you would possibly want out of a transparent government, for sure,
or from freedom of the press standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's and even if they weren't successful in arresting Glenn Greenwald or Laura Poitras, and they had all these and they were spying on them, like, other journalists must be kind of have their antenna up now, being like, okay, well, I'm not going to report on certain things because I don't want my life being turned upside down by our government. So even if they don't get Glenn Greenwald, they've probably deterred a bunch of new Glenn Greenwalds from emerging from just a regular journalist aspect and limiting what they'll actually report on them. So the story is more than just Assange, even though that's literally a terrible, terrible thing. But the idea that our government is targeting journalists when they report on journalists is disturbing as all hell.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Literally crazy.
This is like Banana Republic type stuff. This is stuff we laugh at other countries for doing, and we're doing
exactly right. Exactly right.
Like, genuinely think about the Edward Snowden thing. The head of the NSA goes on under oath on television and says definitively with no equivocations, we are not spying on American citizens. None. Edward Snowden's like, yeah, we are.
James Clapper's another piece of shit.
James Clapper's the worst. So Edward Snowden gets it published through Glenn Greenwald, and they say, and it's not like it's high-risk stuff as much as the intelligence community tries to spin everything into, it's a security threat and he's endangering you. Like, no, you're fully corrupted and spying on every citizen, and you have the ability to read every email, text message, listen in on any phone call you want across the country. Some of us are a little uncomfortable with any other human being having that much power and control. I don't know. Seems kind of bad.
Yeah.
And your response was, let's go find the guy that published this so we can place him under arrest for doing his job. That's it. Julian Assange, listen, like him or hate the guy, what he demonstrated was not security risk and putting lives in danger. What he demonstrated was the gross malfeasance and overreach of the government as a whole, the Defense Department, and the NSA, and put it up for the world to see and shined a light where they didn't want a light. And it's not because they didn't want a light so they could protect their assets. They didn't want the light because they were doing shady stuff, and they continue to do it now.
Yeah.
And he went out and said, you're doing this. They said, no, we're not. And he went, well, here's all the proof. And they went, security threat. I'm sorry, but if the government is doing bad things, the person that calls them out should not be the one who's vilified.
No.
The person who definitively proves and publishes those things should not be the one who gets called out at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the same backbone of the whole Lieutenant Colonel Scheller thing, right? Like you've exposed something that you're not supposed to, and you'll be taken care of because of it.
Right. So. There's a legitimate problem that you are bringing to light. We cannot have that, so we are going to paint you as a threat to national security, unpatriotic, doesn't love the country, and endangering the lives of the service members around you.
And if that doesn't work, we'll kill you.
And if that doesn't work, we'll kill you. Or have a gun battle in the streets of Britain outside the Ecuadorian embassy.
That'd be fun.
All
right. Let's touch on this last subject here.
In Color Me Shocked for 1,500, Alex.
So the Federal Reserve, if you guys haven't been paying attention, lost a couple presidents over the last week or so.
Weird. Oh, and just so people know this, Federal Reserve is a network of different chapters. So
12,
that's why
12
there's
I believe.
multiple
Yeah, there's
presidents.
12 different banks, I think there are.
I think that is correct.
And so two of those 12, the Boston president and the Dallas president, both resigned last week. In light because of an insider trading scandal, if you will, at the Federal Reserve. So let me give you some of the details here, and you can fill out any minute details you feel like that might be necessary. So the Dallas Fed president, President Kaplan, he had multiple $1 million, totaling upwards of $27 million, of investments in S&P futures.
Okay.
Technically not illegal.
Sure.
And then I'll draw this all together in a second here. So the Boston Fed president, so these guys are basically doing day trading, which is kind of crazy.
Awesome.
Right? So this guy made 37 REITs trades, REITs. It's a real estate
investment trust.
And he made all those within 1 year. Now, these are on the heels of the Fed buying $700 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities, basically ensuring that the 37 REITs trades are going to be successful. And all of the debt purchases in general are making, people were going into the S&P. So the idea that the Fed, who's dictating all this monetary policy and clearly knows the economic impact that it has when it makes those policies.
If they don't, they're idiots.
For sure.
Okay.
It's literally beyond discussion. If they don't know, they shouldn't be in that job.
Right.
And we didn't mention Chairman Powell. He's also was doing some real estate investments as well.
So the guy held some municipal bonds that the Fed then turned around and bought, driving up the price. That's normal.
So the fact that these guys create the policy and they can make trades based on information that they know is going to happen ahead of time shouldn't be technically legal. Like that should not be that should be illegal, and they should be in jail. And now, just to to back that up, the Fed has changed their policy as of yesterday or 2 days ago. Now that they had, all the presidents had to divest from anything and put them only in index funds or cash out. So
outstanding.
Not only did they just claim it as, oh well, this was fine, this is technically not illegal. They changed the policy immediately, realizing that
it's a bad look.
Anybody looking at it with any kind of reasonable eyes would be like, this is terrible.
Sure.
So I don't know that the Chairman Powell's gonna end up resigning here too. But I saw, there's another one on the news this morning that I forgot. There was another Fed president who was being dragged into this, and I can't remember which one it was now. But anyway, I'm guessing it doesn't stop with those 2 or 3 that we've already been alerted to. I'm assuming that most of them, if not all of them, do this.
These people are dirty.
Dirty is beyond.
Yes,
it's terrible. We're talking about like the wealthy of the wealthy of the wealthy, right? I mean, these people.
They're not worried about inflation.
No. Well, and these are the guys who want to track $600 bank transactions.
Yeah,
it's not to track the wealthy. It's to track everybody else. I literally think the Fed should not exist. So this doesn't change my opinion on that at all.
Well, when the Fed was originated to take over printing of a paper currency, the fear was that that would lead to debt, because that's what's always happened when you bring in central banks to any country. And as a compromise, the government said, okay, fine. We need this because we think it'll allow for greater expansion and curb off some problems, but we'll put a debt limit in so the government can only go so far into debt. And that way we will curb the excesses we know are a threat and will cause a huge economic downturn. And so now what did they do?
Well, the debt ceiling is a retractable roof, right?
They just keep raising the thing.
Yeah, it's not a ceiling.
It's not at all. It's a joke. It is nothing more than a political tool, a political football to kick back and forth whenever the other side's in power. And they go, we got to raise it. Yeah. What's the point? It's like having a seatbelt on your car that you just don't buckle. It's pointless if you don't use it as it's intended.
So it wasn't another president. It was the Fed vice chair, Clarita, traded millions one day before Powell emergency pandemic statement.
Awesome. Awesome news. These people are not here to serve your best interests. They're not. I don't know how much more clear you can make it. And going back to just to touch on this, and then we'll jump back in. If you think a $3.5 trillion bill would involve no new spending, you're high. That is not possible. That's not how math works. But anyways, the reason this matters, the stock market has not gone up virtually every year for the last 13 years because of solid economics all the way down to the low level of businesses. The stock market, in large part, has gone up almost every year for the last 13 years because the Federal Reserve is engaged in quantitative easing, wherein they have been putting somewhere between $80 to $120 billion per month to go and buy treasuries. Now, what that means is that puts the money in the market. So how is the stock market supposed to meaningfully go down when somebody is funneling $80 billion a month into it? Somebody do the math for me. How does the market go down when that's happening? I mean, it's happened on occasion, and now so that's how impactful this is. That when the Fed says we're going to start tapering, meaning we're just going to start slowing down the quantitative easing, the market drops by 2%. People sell because people know this is why the market's going up. Like, people that do this for a living know this is why the market's going up, in large part. Also, stock buybacks, because they've driven interest rates down so low that a lot of companies just go out and they borrow a ton of money at exceedingly low interest rates, like, 1%, 1.5%, and they go and they buy up a bunch of their stock. So the law of supply and demand, if you limit the supply, but the demand is still there, what happens to the price?
Jacks up.
Goes up. And then all these executives whose compensation and bonus structure is based on stock price cash out. So they borrow at 1%, stock of the company goes through the roof, increases by 10%. Look at this. We're brilliant. Look at our price go. Now, did the fundamentals of the company change at all? No. Profitability change at all? Nah. Risks, threats, any of that change? Nope. But stock price went up just because they bought back the stock. That's not weird. So looking at this, and now you have the futures contract where you're betting on what's going to happen down the road. So if in, let's say, I don't know, March of 2020, when the S&P is down 20%, then 30%, and you happen to know the Federal Reserve is about to fund the largest amount of cash inflow to the people and to the stock market ever, where do you suppose you'd bet on that future going?
Up.
I would think so. And if the average person doesn't know that that's coming yet, and you do.
Did you get that? You didn't get that email?
I missed it. I'm on their email list, obviously. The Fed then turns around and says, hey, we're going to do all this. Now, upon hearing that, an average person is going to go, hey, I'm going to go buy these. I'm going to go buy stock futures, because if that money's coming in, it's a reasonable conclusion that that's all going to go up. But that guy already bought it, and he got a better rate than you. So he gets to win because he had inside information that you were not aware of. Yeah. Privy to. Thank you. That's wrong. There's a reason that is illegal. If you did it, if I did it, we would go to jail. Ask Martha Stewart. She went to jail. Well, she went to prison for insider trading. Ironically enough, members of Congress fully allowed to do insider trading until 2008, I believe it was.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure of the year, but that is
right. Fully legal. For 20 years after it was illegal for the average person to do it, it was still legal for members of Congress to do it. That's not crazy. Now, apparently, the Fed, who arguably has the single biggest impact on the stock market of any entity, of any single organization, their people are allowed? That wasn't against the rules for them to engage in insider trading? And everybody just goes, that's normal.
Just a real quick interjection. I shared with you this earlier today, but we haven't talked about Bitcoin today. But this was a tweet from something called Nancy Pelosi's portfolio tracker, which is a great handle. Just for the record, right. Nancy Tracker is the handle. Actually, Bitcoin is up over 7,000% over the past 5 years. Nancy Pelosi's portfolio is up over 10,000%. She is so smart.
All right, listen, if you guys aren't savvy investors with great familiarity for rates of return, 7,000% in 5 years is unheard of for traditional investing. It's because it's cryptocurrency bought in its infancy. Like, Amazon doesn't give you that if you bought in early on in 5 years. Nancy Pelosi's portfolio of various stocks, bonds, cryptocurrencies, real estate is up 10,000% in 5 years. For an average investor, what you're typically shooting for, 6 to 8% per year. That's what you're going for. 10,000% in 5 years cannot. A hedge fund couldn't do that, and they're the smartest investors in the world, allegedly. There's only one way you get to 10,000, guys, and it ain't legal. So I guess this is my frustration that keeps brimming to the edge, and I want to scream this. Like, this is not normal. This is not okay that this is happening. And it's not just Nancy Pelosi, for the love of God. It's Chuck Schumer, it's Mitch McConnell, it's Ted Cruz, it's all of them. They do this stuff, and the Fed chairs are no better, except they're unelected. There is literally zero consequence to them whatsoever. These guys are going to resign from the Fed, and that's going to be the extent of the ramifications for doing this.
Yeah, they'll go get plushy jobs.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely ending up on Wall Street. Yeah. And this system is unsustainable.
Well, just to wrap it up, at least they got rid of all their investments and divested just in time for their tapering.
Son of a gun.
I mean,
they had to divest of all their investments just before we're about to have the largest increase in COVID cases ever. Plus, the tapering's going to start taking effect. Anything else we want to throw in here?
It's almost like they released the story right as they wanted to end the story. So, I don't know. It's all bizarro world.
Right, and the Fed is loaning monies to banks at unprecedented levels, like levels that would have been illegal 3 years ago. Like, guys, this is a house of cards. I don't know what's going to cause the downturn, but, geez, apparently it's coming soon since all the Fed guys just divested of all their holdings. I would venture to guess that's happening soon.
All right.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
This is not financial advice. For the love of God, don't listen to me for financial advice on the show.
All right. Well, do you have something lined up for episode 69 next week?
I don't know.
Should we get a sex guru on here for episode 69?
You're such a child.
I know. But I figured I would throw it out there. It came off the top of my head, so.
What's the astrology sign that's the 6th? Is it Pisces?
Feces.
I hate you.
All right. On that note, Let's get out of here.
Yeah, it's
all
enough.
right. I thank you again for joining us. We will be back here again next Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern, for more news of the weird.
I mean, we got to consider this name change to Too Far Gone. That's an accurate description.
And please share and like this video again. Share it with all your friends, all your family, anybody who may be interested in doing this. And if you listen to the audio podcast, again, leave that rate and review. 5 stars is good. 1 star is bad. So leave 5 stars. And we will see you all again next Monday.